Next up, let's talk about reference art. Gigadisc is all about throwing a disc, and they've been doing that for years. So I'm just going to go to Google and type in throwing discus. So if you take a quick scroll down, you're going to see a ton of great reference, especially stuff like this, where you can see the way the human body moves or should be posed to get a correct discus throw. This is very vital information for the animators. But perhaps they throw like a frisbee disc. So let's type in throwing disc golf. And boom, we get to see all sorts of great shots of disc golfers in action, from casual shots to more serious shots. And once again, we get to see breakdowns like this wonderful photo of exactly the position the body's in and the torque that happens. This is great stuff for the animators. Torque is one of those things that you can spend a lot of time studying, but with an illustration like that, you can see where the knee should be, where the hip should be, where the shoulder should be right away. So a modern animator really has no excuse for not being able to get good reference of the mechanics of what they're going to try to put their character through. I had an old art director that wanted a piece of reference art for every single thing, from foliage and trees to individual pieces of clothes. It's really important to understand that you need a great deal of visual reference to do good animation, and associating that with your shot breakdown is vital. It's crucial. It's just something you have to do. It's a lot of work, but you got to do it. So let's start with the environments. Let's take a look at the different reference images that I've gotten for the desert scene that these cinematics occur in. So this really gives you a feel for the mood and the environment and even the lighting that they're going to be in. I've even done some simple comps. Here I added a statue I found from Russia into one of the canyons, and then here I've started kind of comping in some ruins into the hills. At this point, it's easy to do stuff like that, and that will really help influence the style that the environmentalists will be working with. So when it comes to characters, I want to show you a little bit of the thought process that goes through when determining more than just their look, but, how they act and who they are. So, as I mentioned before, the character we're going to animate through this course is Ronnie Ball, the team captain, and this is his model right here. This is the high-res version that we're using in the cartoon, but the low-res game-ready model is what I've provided you to work with in the next module. He's already set up, textured, rigged, and ready to go. This course is about animating the character using hybrid animation on a finished rig. If you need more information about how to rig a character, please take a look at my other course here on Pluralsight about rigging for hybrid animation. Animating a character requires that you understand the attitude and the essence of the character. So when you gather reference art for your character, think about that. So everything about him, his mood, his smile, when he's looking at you seriously, when he's looking at you with the, questioning look, or just general badassery. As you can see, I have a very specific influence for the Ronnie Ball character and the way I want him to act, but it doesn't have to be an actor or an actress. It could be a friend of yours or a culmination of different actors or actresses, or even comic book characters or cartoon characters. All right, so let's talk about storyboards. Storyboards can be done at a variety of different levels, from stick figures all the way up to full rendered paintings, and they come in all different shapes and forms. But what they're meant to do is give an idea of the composition of the scene at a glance so that it ties in with the sentence on your shot breakdown. It's that simple. Let's look at a few examples. Here's one that I would say is pretty average, right? An inked piece with some gray tone put in to indicate light and shadow, covering here 9 panels. And now here's a look at something a lot more simple, but the idea is the same. You're able to break down one shot at a time and get the action and the composition that's going to occur. So let's take a look at the storyboards that I've done for this cutscene in Gigadisk. Here the hovercraft comes cruising in. Here we see more of a close-up of them on the deck of the hovercraft. Here the pilot Alec is looking at his controls on the hovercraft, and each one of these matches a sentence from the shot breakdown. Here they go through a bit of dialogue, and then Chimera finds her disc there on the ground and leaps off the back of the hovercraft. After she lands, she waves back to the guys on the hovercraft, and then Ronnie says, "That girl's going to get herself hurt doing that." So once again, it just needs to inform you of the composition, the characters, and the framing, and the action that's going to go along. So I also go through and collect audio for the scene, any dialogue, and I like to get any special effects sounds, like the engine noise and any environment sounds, perhaps wind blowing, and then stupid things like footsteps and stuff like that. There's so many different ways to acquire these that I'm not going to really go into that, but I use a field recorder, and I went out to a park and recorded kind of park sounds and people walking and even people playing disc golf, right? And then I just did my own voice to do the different voices of the different characters for now. If you have access to the performers and you can get their audio files, great. So what I do, though, is I organize them correctly. So you can see here I have field recordings, I have different performers, and everything's all broken down. And once again, I try, because I'm going to have so many different sounds associated and sound effects, I really try to organize these files accurately. I built up a large library of sound effects over the years, and you can acquire those in a number of ways. You'd be amazed at how much is available online for free and royalty-free for you to use in your cartoons and games. So it's important not just to make a library of these things, but to know what's there so that you can go to it. I even had one of my old assistants organize it like into vehicles, air, land, sea. Okay, you put all this stuff together over time, and then pulling it and using it and mixing it into your projects becomes very easy. The most important thing to note is that this does not need to be your final audio. Okay, what we're building is what's known as a scratch track, or something to hold the place of the final audio until that gets done, usually later in the process, in the post-production part of the animation process. But we'll hold the place in spot now so that you know roughly how long it, let's say, takes Ronnie to say a line. If you can measure that out in frames, it's pretty good, easy to determine the length of that sequence. It's that simple.